And then also Kwame Jantwa. Mr. Jantwa, I know Nania has a champion. What do you have?
I told you last week.
I forgot him.
Papa Odukro.
Papa Odikro.
Kwame Educhum Jantwa.
Kwame Educhum Jantwa.
Educhum.
Fantastic.
I have a pet challenge.
What's that?
I wonder whether the president sleeps well. I wonder whether the Minister of Agriculture sleeps well. I wonder whether the Speaker of Parliament sleeps well. And I wonder whether a lot of people in the MPP sleep well.
It's all part of the things we'll be discussing.
How can we spend $36 to $40 million in importing onions?
$36 to $40 million
Yes.
in importing onions.
From Niger, from Nigeria, from Burkina. How?
If you add tomatoes, it all comes to 100 million.
How?
Welcome to Ghana.
Don't we have soil in Ghana?
We do.
Isn't there a way we can get people to grow onions for us to eat? We have to import, spend money? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Number two, when Parliament yesterday passed the Witchcraft Act,
The non-league.
yeah, did they actually involve the people and get to know that witchcraft is part of the tradition? There are positive sides and negative sides. Isn't it because we can't enforce laws? That's why some of the negative sides we can't do anything about. And don't you think we are shoving it underground today? Let's see.
Yeah. And then Eric Amwakuchum, you all know him. Eric Amwakuchum is now a regular on the show. Thank God he's now coming here. You were on Metro yesterday, or?
Yes.
Because I saw
Wednesday.
Dr. Randy Abe fixing you the other day. You guys discussed the Ejakun tape, or as to the indiscipline, quality. Oh, you guys were discussing.
See, he doesn't cook Amalibe's bacon.
So you guys discussed. You've heard you heard the explosive tape, right?
Of who? From who?
From what?
Watch Ejakun.
That what?
That's.
So that he was dismissed by.
Oh, come on. I mean, I think that if you if you're trying
that
to
one we know. It's
reference a program that I was part of just a couple of days ago, I think that you also heard what I said. I mean, I don't think that the conversations about what Chijako has said, really, to be honest, if you ask me, I feel that, I mean, the timing and then the motivation can also be questioned. But I'm also minded by the fact that some of these things are part of an internal process, right? And I mean, of course, persons who have been mentioned also have every right to respond.
Okay.
You know, one of the things that I find quite interesting, I don't want to use the word hypocritical, is this whole concept that the mere fact that you're in public office, if an allegation is made against you, you are actually guilty of those allegations. Some of them extremely damning. And then when it suits other people, they say that let's use the tenets of a whole democratic dispensation that I agree that we want to be governed by. I think that we have to be very objective. So even this whole conversation around moral, indiscipline and all of those
poor
things.
leadership.
Whilst, I mean, the fingers are being pointed at political leadership and all that. I think that even you, the media as well, you have to also take some responsibility, right? So you pick and choose aspects of these conversations, things that are sensational, and leave the bread and butter conversations. Yes. You know, so if you want us to go there, of course we can go there.
Okay,
but
we'll go there.
all I'm saying is that, yes, I mean, in any given government, based on either policy decisions or even prerogative of a president, executive president, there's definitely going to be fallouts. And when these fallouts happen, you need to find ways of resolving them. But, I mean, we run a constitution that gives the president the powers to appoint and disappoint. And I feel that even when we want to have conversation around principles, at a time when you disagree with certain positions that have been taken by the government, that is when you show your principled side and exit the government. You don't exit after or when you have resigned and then you come and tell everybody that, well, at the time when these decisions were being made, I disagreed. Or Because even when you're being made a minister of state or a cabinet minister, there are things that you have to do. You swear an oath of secrecy, collective responsibility, and all of those things. And I think that sometimes we have to question some of these things that are said by people, into detail. We have to go a bit more granular in analyzing some of these conversations. And then once you exit now, you release reports and you say all sorts of things. I don't think that is right.
Man.
Yes.
Yo. Now, who don't like chop money? Dewa 539 chop money is here. So we do encourage you to collect your chop money every morning alongside, of course, at 8:30 a.m. by simply dialing, and this time, *446#. Select option 2 to play Dewa 539 chop money. You win 20 times your stake with Direct 1, 40 times your stake with Direct 2, 400 times your stake with Direct 3. And you can also perm your numbers or bet on all 5 numbers to win. So we always encourage you, pick from the ranges of the numbers 1 to 39, and then it becomes an easy win for you. Win every day with Dewa 539. It is the only lottery that offers you the best chances of winning. Collect your chop money every day into your wallet. So you simply do that by dialing *446# or visiting dewa-nla.com to play Dewa 539 chop money now. And these days I'm always playing something else or the other to make sure that I get to win all the cash there. Obrimpon Kaba, money, good morning. Evans Blay, Joseph Akasokre. You say, I like chop money, pa. Okay, I know. Morris Mana, good morning. And then Ni Atukwe Kwe. Thank you for joining us. We're grateful. Prince Tulashi. Hey, Ni Boy Jefferson, you're there as well. And we have to say, Shaddai Adute, thank you for. Upon William. You say, Roland, please, good morning. Alabila. Raymond has also joined us. Letty Jones. Now, yesterday, we all know Professor Lumumba, the Kenyan lawyer and speaker on African leadership, was speaking again at the memorial lecture of Professor Ivan Sata Mills. And he had this to say, among many other related things, as part of his admonition to African leaders, including our leadership right here in Ghana.
When political leadership is synonymous with dishonesty, it comes at a time when this continent can and must rise from the quicksand of dishonesty and blatant thievery in order to rise to the firm ground of hope. It is not how long you serve that matters, but how well you serve. So the first message that we are sending out today to Africans is that longevity in office in and of itself is not what makes one great, but the quality of service. Indeed, many African countries are infamous because of individuals who occupy public space, and their greatest claim to fame is that they are dishonest, is that they are arrogant, is that they are thieves. And therefore, when we celebrate President John Atta Mills, whom we are told and we are aware was a votary for transparency, we are telling them that it is not how long you serve, it is how well you serve. We are celebrating humility, and from this podium, we are telling the arrogant African politician, be not arrogant. Because the words of the Bible are still true, that if you are arrogant, there shall still appear a fingerless God, and it shall be said, mene, tekel, upersin, that your words and days have been weighed and you've been found wanting in order.
Professor Lumumba there. That said, Mr. Amwakuchum, you say that we pick and choose what is appropriate for us to speak about. Is that not it?
No, but that's...
But why do we have this it looks like now the observation being made by key institutions, even the religious leaders have now joined it, because they stayed off for a very long time. And now they are acknowledging that across board, poor leadership, corruption, etc., reduction in key moral values are key things that are degrading the society and the country.
Those are strong words. I mean, the thing is that
Coming from the communique.
how do you, for example, measure moral values compared to what, to who, and how? What are the indicators? I mean, what kind of, if you like, scientific analysis have been done to suggest that? Now, I mean, of course, in an environment where now you have the advent and diffusion of technology, internet, social media, and all of those things, it's very clear that sometimes some of these things will be a bit more pronounced. People will know about things that are happening and all of those things. But it can never be the case that we're in a state where there's total, absolute moral decay, that we're living in a almost like a jungle or a banana environment. I beg to differ. And sometimes, I mean, I'm asking myself, what is it that they are comparing to? Now, sometimes when you invite us to communicate on some of these things, if you're not careful, you would rub off people the wrong way. I mean, is it the church itself as an institution that has no moral decay in there? Or is it other religious entities and all of those things? Or is it public sector organizations? Or is it even the media? You know, my senior here was talking about the importation of onions. We can have that debate as we go along. The same media houses who are complaining about importing onions are transcribing telenovelas that are done in Spanish and in India, and without even doing local production, and superimposing the local language on them. You think that that is not something that you can actually develop local production to be able to use Ghanaian actors and film producers and everything to do these things? So, you know, we can have all these conversations and try to blame either, if you like, the political class for some of these challenges. But in reality, we all have a responsibility. So if we can discuss this thing on a holistic standpoint, fair enough. And even if this whole conversation around importation of tomatoes and onions and the fact that it's a responsibility of the government to go and plant tomatoes and onions. But the reality is that in this country, we export foodstuffs as well, right? And I'll tell you for a fact that because of the cyclical nature of agriculture, there are times when there are certain produce that we produce in this country that is also exported into the sub-region. And when theirs are in season, it comes into Ghana. Then there's a whole conversation around an African continental free trade area. How do you expect that you would be working in a silo environment and expect to produce and be able to export to your neighboring countries, and they cannot export into your country? So we can have all those practical conversations about what is, what the economics will say, a competitive advantage to produce certain things, or comparative advantage, and then you can glean or take advantage of these things. But for me, once we lump everything together and make it look like we are living in an environment, you know, that it's almost, there's a lack of indiscipline and all that. I don't think so. I was even listening to some of the commentary that were being made about corporal punishment and all that. I mean, to what end? Yes, I realized, I remember a case when we were in school, every child that was turning up to school for being late was being beaten. Yet 20, 30 years down the line, these same children who were beaten for going to school for being late arrive at almost every function late. Right? The Ghanaian is actually known for what they call the GMT. Right? Yet everybody that has been to school in this country will tell you that when they were arriving to school late, they were being punished for it. Right? So that should tell you. I mean, they have tried and tested methods of dealing with indiscipline and all of those things. I mean, we can't say that there's a culture of beating children and that if you beat a child, that means that you're actually exacting discipline. We can't say that, right? It has to correlate with the end result, the action. Is that child not going to litter when they become a young adult or an adult, or, all of these conversations? So for me, really, yes, of course, the church is there to serve a particular purpose when it comes to the whole conversation around the moral fiber of a country and the mosque and other religious entities and all of those. We can have those social conversations. But when it comes to a proper social construct of if exactly there's a discipline and the leadership, where are the leaders coming from? You understand? All these leaders are coming, either you're a Muslim or you're a Christian or you believe in somewhere, are all coming from within the same entities.
All right.
Right? So as far as I'm concerned, yes, if there are specifics, there are reasons why we find ourselves in a situation where we find ourselves, or there are things that are being done, we can drill down to those specifics rather than having, if you like, a broad,
A generalized
conversation about breakdown immorality.
It's not intriguing that now all the conversations about what used to be criticized in the past has now become very philosophical to everybody. So the conversation is that all of us need to come around the table, make sure that there's camaraderie, etc. But we are failing to speak to the issue. So this communique from this conference, for which we had even the vice president and the former president all attending, said that political leadership has failed to respect the principles of intergenerational equity and sustainable development in our development equation. They also say, of course, the media is abdicating its watchdog role due to the excessive politicization and ownership structure of media houses. And so realizing that the issues of law, equity, and good conscience provided for in our constitution is gradually missing from our development equation. So for example, annually, if you look at Transparency International, over the last couple of years, we lose $3 billion every year to corruption. That's what has been quantitatively assessed. You link that to what the Auditor General's report is. The special audit that was undertaken on COVID expenditure, for example, brings all these out, and it's just defended. Now it's everybody, all of us are the problem. But it's because we have weak political leadership. The media is supposed to be the watchdog, and all of us are politicized, and that is the thrust of them. Why are we failing to speak to the issues and speak truth to power?
So let me start by saying good morning to your viewers and listeners alike. You see, from what you have read, the communique, the church, or the moral voice has blamed everybody but for themselves. From what you have read. To some extent, I want to agree with Eric that people have names. And that's why we are being given names. So when you go wrong, let them mention you and say, you have gone wrong. That is unacceptable. But I can also understand that in this dispensation, it's dangerous to be mentioning names. Because in this dispensation, you will be picked up, or they will come after you, or
harass you,
or they will send state agents to come and investigate you, whether you have paid taxes or not. So, in order that, and there's also clearly, there's also in this dispensation, there's also an increase in moral decadence. We must agree to it. This program that was attended yesterday, or 2 days ago,
ended yesterday, yes,
is supposed to carve out what I would term as a moral code for our leaders. What is my view on it? Too little, too late. Too little, too late.
Why so?
Because the Catholic, the church the Pentecost Church, and I don't want to limit to only the Pentecost Church, it is about the moral voice, have sat too long and allow this moral decadence to fester. They've sat too long. Look, it is immoral that in the midst of poverty, you have a president flying in luxurious jets. It's immoral. Totally immoral. Now, did you hear any of our moral voices speak up against that? Did you hear? It took a lone voice in the wilderness. A member of parliament, Samuel Kujeto, to hold the president accountable. And coupled with economic crisis, the president then stopped flying the presidential jet because he had emptied the kitchen. So if you have the moral voice that hitherto used to speak out, would call the president out and tell the president in his face that what you are doing is wrong. And today, that same moral voice is lost. Won't you add them to the problem that we have? So they are a part of the problem. The priests, the religious leaders, are part of the problem. I had cause to ask the chairman of the Peace Council at a conference in Pram Pram. Why is it that they fail to call out people? Why is it that they fail to say it as it is? It doesn't mean that when there's no war, there's peace. It doesn't mean so. When there's poverty in a country, it's war against the people. And so if you have a president who, in the midst of poverty, was flying presidential jets, and then you have the moral voice keeping quiet, aren't they part of the problem? So this cosmetic thing they went to do, for me, well, it's good for the optics, but I think that they are tackling it from the wrong angle. Do we still have moral education in our primary schools? Religious and moral education. You remember that subject? That's where you must tackle it from. And begin to teach the children why, if you become a president and your country is poor, you don't fly luxurious jets. Teach them how to be committed to their country. Yesterday, at the Lumumba the lecture, you heard Professor Danso talk about Professor Mills. How he, Professor Danso, was driving on the
hockey pitch.
The pitch.
Or the pitch.
Football pitch, or they say football pitch. And Professor Mills, not once, not twice, more than 3-4 times, had to come back to caution him and his friend that this is grass that money was used by the university to plant. You dare not do that to the grass. How do we want to be remembered when we die as president and leaders of this country? How do we want to be remembered? And so, the selection of the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, the traditional rulers who were all there is good. But I'm saying that this approach is wrong in the first place. And secondly, this approach seeks to obfuscate the real people who are behind the immoral acts. It does not pinpoint them and say, you, what you are doing is wrong. So lumping all of them together, there were good people and bad people there, lumping all of them together and preaching to them is good for the optics, but it gives cover to nation wreckers. It gives cover to persons who have done wrong to this country at the conference. And I think that moving forward, people have names.
Amamalva, his Jantua, Eric Chum, on this platform, if any of us goes against the rules governing this program, call that person out and tell him that he's wrong. When you do that, if I were to be in line to engage in that conduct, I will stop. So even the small things that the moral voices are supposed to do, they didn't do it, or they are not doing it. I remember in the past, there was somebody who said that Nyansafu or Moe.
Reverend Mati.
But you guys went after him.
I remember.
Because
Only let me make my point.
Chumbuafos creates the
Can you
prejudice
make
for-
me?
I'm just giving you.
I don't need your assistance. I don't need. I've not been disabled, so don't give me any assistance. You see, there was a time when a Reverend Asante called out former President Mahama because he said boot for boot. Today, there's a president who is calling his neighbors, his friends, opponents as what's the name of that thing? The name of the Bible?
Nehemiah.
Eh?
Nehemiah.
No, something Babaya, something like that. He mentioned it.
Tobias.
Tobias.
And
Eh? Calling
Simbala
people.
and-
Simbala and Tobias, yes. Calling people
the naysayers.
naysayers. Tagging critics as doom mongers. And you don't have anybody from the religious leadership caution the president. So I think that, look, this country is where we are because of hypocrisy. You won't speak up, you won't say it as it is, you won't condemn, and then you come and hold a press function like this, and then you put together wrongdoers and good doers, and then the wrongdoers have cover. I think that it is late in the day. If we actually want to go back to ensure that morality is being respected or is a national responsibility, let's go back to our primary schools. Let's introduce the moral and religious education. Let's ensure that we start from there.
Lawyer Janto, at the end of the day, it's about what is happening currently. That is the mirror of the present state of leadership, of moral decadence, etc. So we have to start from leadership. And leadership is everything, right? Is that not what we say? And the principles of accountability have to be spelled out. Who has to take responsibility for that?
Good morning to our viewers. Good morning to my fellow panelists. What part of leadership are you referring to? Is it political leadership? Is that what you're referring to? Is the various leaderships in the structure? Various leaderships in the structure. But Roland, I ask you, what was the objective of this particular conference? What was the objective? What was it supposed to show and tell us? What would happen after the beautiful communique that they have put together, which encompasses a lot of the challenges we have in this country? Where do we go from there? I would have loved the church to have said, we have stood in the pulpit and we have chastised our congregation for some of the immoral things that are happening in this country. How many of them do it? How many of them on a Sunday will stand in the pulpit and speak direct to power? How many of them will do that? Why? Why won't they? Because they fraternize with power. They want to be seen with power. They feel it's a trophy, being seen with power. So they will not talk about it. And that should be the place where they talk about it. But no. And then you come and have a conference and you point fingers. Who are you pointing the fingers at? Who? Because it's not a question of just leadership. It's a question of Ghana and Ghanaians.
Have we decayed that bad?
Look, some of us, I would say we are lucky. Why are we lucky? because we saw what happened in the First Republic. In all the republics, we've lived through all the republics, and we can tell the difference and see where we've gotten to. And yes, this particular, especially this particular republic, has been worse. Has been worse. So, as you're talking, I wrote down some points. One of the major challenges that is killing morality in this country is money. It's money. So far as we want money, we will go and do anything and get it. Nobody questions it. Number two, government contracts. So, if I have a government contract and the government is doing things that are wrong, will I say it? Will I say it? Isn't the middle class in this country dead? Do you hear them speak? They wusu their whole kakra with the, what do you call it? The dead something. Look at what happened. And even that. Number three, lack of law enforcement. That is what they should be talking about. They should have taken leaders, political leaders, and those who are in charge of enforcing the law on. I expected them to be taking all those people sitting there. They should have been able to tell President Mahama, when you were there, A, B, C, D, E happened that you did wrong. You should have corrected it. They should have told President Kufuor, when you were there, A, B, C, D, A is what happened. Wrong. They should have told the Vice President, A, B, C, D is what you're doing. That is creating this problem. Were they able to do it? Were they able to do it? Couldn't be bothered. Lack of patriotism. And they referred to in communique, Operation Feed Yourself, didn't they?
They did.
What were they trying to show us? That, it brought us together. Were they able to tell the leaders who were there? Were they able to do it? And so, they say children, look at how their parents act and grow with it. Could they not key out the good things and the bad things about the presidents who were there when they were in power? Were they able to do that? One of the most important things that they have neglected, especially Parliament, is the broadcasting bill. Is the broadcasting bill.
What would they have done?
Why? A lot of our youth take what they see on TV. And in this country, when you come on TV, you're a hero. TV is I want to only say in this country, in the world today, television is power. Do we have a broadcasting bill monitoring and seeing how programs are done on TV? Do we have it? How long has it been on the statute books that nothing has happened to it? Looks as if we can't be bothered. Politics is no more a service thing. Politics has now become a profession. And people go into politics with no experience. Some of our politicians have never worked before. Some of our politicians came straight from university right into politics. Don't have an idea of what it means to run a business or run even a home. And they have made millions out of it. Who is saying anything? Nothing. Quiet. So who should you point the finger at? And the people seem to be scared. Look, today, and when I say it, my brother will say no, people in his party will say no. President Kufuor, he has a stronghold on the MPP. Why do I say that?
Not only the NPP, even state institutions.
Why do I say that? Because when things are going wrong, they themselves in their party can't talk about it.
Afraid to talk about it.
Didn't we have the parliamentarians who were against Kanafurata? What did we call them? There were about 97 of them. They went to sit in front of the president. They said what they had to say. He said a few words to them. Fwing. Do we even hear of them again? Do we hear of them again?
He said a few words and then what?
Fwing. Sulia. Nothing is happening. Has anything happened? Isn't Kanafurata still there? Would we say Kanufurata has handled this economy well? And the president is imposing him on us, and nobody can say anything. Those are some of the things I expected them to say. That Mr. President, the finance minister, has not been able to handle this economy well. He should go. Were they able to say it? So what are they talking about? They are lamentations. This communique they brought out, how are they taking it forward?
They are just lamenting.
Because it doesn't start with those who are immoral. It starts from the classroom. That's where it starts from. I remember we sat around this table and we said when we were in school, they made sure that you learn the national ode, the national pledge. You learned it. And as children, because you learned it, even when you are at home, you'll be walking and reciting it. It has a psychological effect on you to do the right thing. And you say morality hasn't broken down in this country. It has really broken down when an individual can stand in the middle of the street. A man can stand in the middle of the street, take his penis out and wee-wee in the middle of the street, and nobody says anything. Nobody says anything. A trotro driver would drive on the pavement. A policeman is standing there. He doesn't say anything, and he drives on it. And you will betray you and go and say anything to him. You see the insults you get. A family is sitting in their car, husband, wife, and a child. The child is on the laps of the mother in front of the car, and nobody says anything. And it's against the law. So what are they talking about? I expected them to be able to point fingers. And wasn't it a fantastic sight to see all the republics there? All the presidents. Okay, Nonado wasn't there, but the vice president represented him. Well, he probably didn't want to come. Did you hear last week the
sanitation minister?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. The speech by Yao Nsako, British Council, where we're talking about whether the Fourth Republic had delivered. Did you listen to his speech?
I did.
We haven't been able to get this country in the form it's supposed to be, because by now we should have done better than First, Second, Third Republic. Better. Have we? Have we? Where in this country we are not interested in developing our local people to take over. We are interested in bringing foreigners in to take over and sit on us. And I'll give you an example of the telecoms industry. How many Ghanaian companies run the telecom industry in this country? How many? How many? Doesn't the telecoms industry make a lot of money? Is that not capital flight? Is anybody looking at it? This morning, when I talked about the onions, I was talking about the onions with respect to the quantum of money we spend. And nobody is bothered. It doesn't prick anybody's conscience that this can't happen. And when you take Planting for Food and Jobs, in the Planting for Food and Jobs policy, it's a fantastic policy. In there, it states every household should have a small garden in their house so that they can grow some of these things themselves. Who has implemented it?
And annually we spend 600 million.
Yes, 600 million.
600 million.
600, and then we come out and want to ban things almost immediately. Would that not have an impact on society? Would that not have an impact? So it's a good thing they brought it out. But how are we going to implement it? The leadership is not only the president, and it is all of us combined. And I would have hoped how President Kufuor said his piece, President Mahama said his piece, the Speaker said his piece, the Vice President said his piece. I would hope that it is the beginning of us to be able to sit together and talk about issues. By the end of this month, the energy sector bill to the IPPs will be $2.2 billion.
Dollars.
$2.2 billion. Shouldn't they have talked about that there? So, really, this communique, where is it heading for?
And I have on the stream, Evans Blay saying, over here in Ghana, political parties take over and mess things up and start then to equalize. What happened in the past? This cannot be so. Alfred Dodu then says that in 2016, during the campaigns, President Nana gave so much hope that there will be reforms and set a new path. Would you say that he has disappointed many or not? I mean, really, how you feel? Because I think objectively, I mean, you're one of the most objective people within the party who speaks truth to power. The hope, the promises.
You see,
From a Gisbergian economy to one of production. No more taxes, more of production.
Well, I mean, I think that President Akufo-Addo, in terms of his contribution and performance, will be there for everybody to appreciate. You know, in history, what tends to happen is that most leaders are actually appreciated after they have left. And I'll say for a fact that there are certain things that I have no challenge with, which is in these political conversations, if my senior brothers here disagree with my opinion or have a different opinion as to the performance and the direction of this government, I won't have a challenge with that. But that's the whole point, that's the whole fundamentals of a democracy. Is that not the case? But the reality is that for you, Roland, then you probably would have to do a lot more work. The onus is on you to be a bit more, if you like, analytical and say that, well, when President Akufo-Addo said he was going to do free SHS, did he do it? He did it. Now, you can have your own issues with free SHS as to initial teething challenges and all of those things. But if you're talking about development of any country, the most fundamental principle is your nurturing of your human capital, your human resource. Now, if you have a population that is unlettered, how are they able to even prosecute a developmental agenda? You understand what I'm saying? So people can have their own challenges and issues with policy positions that have been taken by government. But I, for example, feel that in conversations surrounding the free SHS, there are kids. I mean, we've all been in school with kids that have come from the villages. I went to school with some people, they came from Form 1 to Upper 6. They never went home, right? Because they didn't even have anywhere to go to. And during school...
So there were poor people studying then?
Yeah.
So it cannot be true that...
Let me finish, right? And this whole concept of leaving school because you can't pay fees and all of those things was very clear for everybody to see. You had challenges where people, back then, when you do what they call the middle school living certificate or JSS or whatever, the family really had no inclination for you to continue because there's no resources for you to do that. Now, you get one public policy that in the last 6-7 years has been able to put almost 700,000 young people into senior secondary school education. Even I think that the numbers are even more than that, right? And the impact, the generational contribution that is going to come from these young people who hitherto didn't have that opportunity is there for everybody to appreciate. Now, if you're talking about a fourth republic that has not delivered, I mean, I beg to differ, but let me tell you something. When we were young, there was something called cash and carry. You know, and sometimes when we discuss political or public policy issues, we are too technical. Cash and carry means that if you're a parent, a mother, in the middle of the night, and your child was sick, and you want to take them to Achibota Hospital or Bridge Hospital or Kolebu and everything, you have to have physical money for you to be able to even get a card so that your child will be given paracetamol so that if their temperature is high, it will come down. We have a public policy called the NHIS, as bad as it can be for certain people because of political expediency. If you take your child to any public sector institution or NHS accredited facilities, they'll give them paracetamol. You understand? We've moved, we've made progress as far as I'm concerned. Yes, if people ask that we should do a lot more, we can do that, right? In this country, you have what we call LEAP. In the last review, right, there are families in this country who hitherto probably will not be able to have access to physical cash for up to even 600 Ghana cedis in a year. So you have a policy called LEAP that would at least give this person some cash to be able to do some basic things that we take for granted, right? an amount of nurses and doctors and public health professionals that we've recruited as this government. There's so many examples, even when people have this conversation around infrastructure. Of course, every day you go to a community that is calling for a road. But then if you're being objective as well, and even you look around yourself, you see that everywhere you go as well, you see development happening. And so when people have, that's what I'm saying, that when people have specifics, and I was happy that he even mentioned that. Specifics, okay, in this particular community, this thing is lacking. Fix it. I won't have a challenge with that. But this whole generalization is like, it's almost as if that nothing at all has been done. Listen, there's one of the public policy decisions that this government has brought to the fore, this whole conversation around the Continental Free Trade Area thing, for example. Maybe implementation is slow. But you have a country of 33 million people, right? In a scheme of things, when it comes to economic power, there's really little that you can do. We have to be very objective with ourselves.
Say that
and
again.
so you have 33 billion people. That's a market. Right. Now, you have an opportunity to harness the potential of 1.4 billion, 1.5 billion African population with a growing middle class and a thriving population, youth population and all that. So you push your public policy positions to ensure that a Ghanaian business become not just a Ghanaian business that is catering for 33 billion people, but becomes a Pan-African brand. Do you understand? So we can have all this conversation.
So you're blaming
around,
the population now?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that. I'm not.
What are you
blaming,
saying?
all I'm saying is that all of these things are things that are practical things. So, for example, we're making references to the European Union. Why is the European Union big? Look at the countries within the European Union. Germany, this, that. These are huge economies. But it made sense for them.
Countries in population.
Right. No, but I said huge economies. Right? But it made sense for them to come together as a single economic unit, right? To prosecute that generalized economic agenda. So there's so many things that we can talk about. But President Akufo-Addo's legacy, as far as I'm concerned, is intact. Now, anytime we have this conversation around even the economy and everything, for some strange reason, even economists, people who are professors and everything, say that you can't discuss the environmental factors.
Which is what?
But the thing is that if you do basic economics, even basic O-level economics tells you, the most basic, tells you about economic facet. Pest is a political, economic, social, technological.
How
Right,
does it,
and so, if
how
you're
does it
discussing,
contribute to this
it contributes to this conversation because anytime we have a conversation and say that, listen, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, prior to when we got hit by a global pandemic, COVID, this was how the economy was faring, right? And after the post that, with all the global, supply chain exigencies and all the challenges that we have, these are the things that we are facing. This is what is going on a global economic scale. Even supply chain alone, even fertilizer alone was a big deal for even major countries. As we speak, even there are big economies that even are struggling for basic things like lumber, right? So whilst we're discussing the issues and the challenges that have bedeviled us because of COVID, then we can start thinking about the opportunities that is also available to us, right? But then if it's a half full or a half empty conversation, that would be the perspective of certain persons. You understand what I'm saying? Because we live in this country where we're under a regime that took us through doom stuff for 4 years. And I was coming to TV3 way back before the NPP came into power. When you go to the house, TV3 had like 3 or 4 generators out there. And all you could hear, you couldn't even hear yourself speak.
But you still came on air and spoke.
Exactly.
How is that possible?
It was possible because there were generators everywhere. You understand? This country has electricity. The lights are on.
By who?
What are you talking about? So all I'm saying is that, yes, you can have all these issues. You can have specifics and all that. People are talking about even the education sector and the moral breakdown and all that. I mean, sometimes when they say these things, I laugh. Let me tell you something. For us, as a youth as well, we also have to speak truth to power. So the same people were saying that, when we're in Legon, they were feeding us. We were one in a room. They were feeding us chicken and everything. They are the people who are running the health of our affairs today. So whose fault is it? You understand what I'm saying? So the younger generation would have to take responsibility for these things. We can't go back to the past and make it look like, oh, everything about this country is actually retrogressing. Listen, if you live in Accra, I mean, I'll just wrap up. I grew up in Tantra Hills, Achimota area. When I was growing up, 20, 30 years ago, there was only one major route from in Sawam, Kumasi, that is coming to Circle. Sometimes it could take you 4 hours, 5 hours to move from St. John's to Circle. You understand what I'm saying? Look at this. Look at the city. Look at how even penetration of electricity. I mean, once we even do politics with some of these things, even President Rawlings, who for one reason had been maligned and everything, when the what do you call it, NDC took office under the PNDC era,
1992.
Yeah, electricity penetration in this country was like 55, 56%. You understand? So sometimes we do politics. For me, I'm objective. We do politics with everything. Now, in this country, in the Fourth Republic, penetration of electricity in this country from various governments have moved from that below the 60% to almost 90%.
And that's the credit to the MPP.
No, I'm just saying that sometimes we are too negative.
You are the least.
You are too negative.
We are too negative, right? So there are things that there are very positive things that we can allude to in this particular dispensation, right? And sometimes I don't do this just pure NDC, MPP thing. Listen, even our democracy and the Constitution. We woke up one day in this country and a sitting president had died. Within 5 hours, we had a new, there's things that we can be proud of as a country. This whole negativity, and that's the thing, because if you're not careful with our commentary, the Ghanaian people will lose faith in the political class. And when they lose faith in the political class, it will go back to
because of the actions of the various institutions and players within
everybody has a responsibility. And I would not say that government or political elites should shirk their responsibility. But we all are in this
Eric,
together.
let me ask you a question. If you have to rate the Akufo-Addo government on a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate the Akufo-Addo-led government based on the promises of the campaign of 2016 that got it elected and came into office in 2017?
Roland, you're my friend,
Oh, this is not friendship.
No, but you're my friend. But because I honestly think that this is not a very...
You are shying away from it.
No, it's not a very fair question to start with.
All right, sir.
Because one, to start with, it
simple.
will not be an objective.
Just simple.
No, it will not be an. But
let's say you go to do WASI. And I give you this as a political actor, 0 to 10. Rate the government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Do you have our 2016 manifesto? Do you have our 2016 manifesto?
That's your answer.
No, I'm asking you.
That's your answer. I said give me rating.
It's a conversation. Do you have our 2016 manifesto?
I said give me rating. Don't take me there because I have to go next one.
No, but
give me a rating. That's my last question.
It will be fair for you to answer. Then
No, I won't answer. I ask you a question. You won't answer me. You are saying this.
So then it means that we don't want us to continue with this particular conversation.
So you shied away.
Roland.
Now, at the end of the day, we have like countries, small in population, who make judicious use of their resources. The first country that I believe, since I started practicing journalism, that all the leaders in the Fourth Republic have alluded to. Indeed, the current president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, did that in 2016. It's Singapore. Singapore has a population less than 6 million. They don't have gold. They don't have all the biggest resources in the world. They make use of human capital. Is it not graft, corruption, that has brought us where we are? Because alongside that, we are not able to speak truth to power. We're not able to discipline people who, for example, take money from the public purse, don't account for money from the public purse. We say that we're going from taxation to production, and rather we have more taxes. Just in July, we started implementing the new taxes as part of the reforms that we're having, and then haven't gone to the IMF, that are already burdening manufacturers, and he's a businessman, he knows that. All of us have friends who are into manufacturing. Is that not the case? that the countries that we say have developed are like us, did some things right, and we have failed in doing them, even though we promised that we'll do them.
And in some cases, you even wonder why we can't simply copy. Copying too, we can't copy. Copying, we can't copy. You get it? So it is multifaceted. But you see, you asked him a question he couldn't answer. The man is not proud of his government's record.
No, but what kind of
So how
question
can
is
he?
that?
How can he answer?
No, but you see,
How can he answer?
no.
Is that-
The
But the
man
point is
simply
that
cannot indicate that his government has performed to the satisfaction of the people of this country.
out of respect.
And then you can also.
I
No, it's
listed.
my time, please.
I
Please,
listed.
please. Let me
the
talk.
key
Now,
public
let him
policy
answer. Let him
decisions
answer. I asked
that
you a
have been
question,
taken
No.
by
you
this
didn't
gov-
answer, so
No,
let him
because,
answer.
I
No.
mean,
Let him
it's
answer.
an unfair question.
It's an unfair question.
Yeah, to start
0
with-
to 10.
No, listen.
Oh, that's my time now.
You could have said 8.
I'm sitting here
That's my
speaking
time.
for this particular
Oh,
government.
no.
So I'll say 11.
No.
Okay.
11
over 10.
Yes.
In law, will say this is an afterthought. so, an afterthought.
No, because I mean, if you
afterthought.
ask me that question when I'm sitting
Why
here,
inject it?
I
An
mean,
afterthought.
specifically speaking for the
see?
government, what do you expect me to say?
You see, he made a point that it's only when leaders leave that you appreciate their works. But history is replicate with leaders who have left, and till this day, the people have not missed them. The efforts will tell you, Togbe Agokole is one. Huh? You are from, you have something there from the Volta region.
He was
Togbe
a wicked
Agokole.
leader.
Have you people regretted? Or have you missed Togbe Agokole?
No.
Mobutu. I don't think the people of DR Congo have missed Mobutu.
Or Zaire.
Zaire, those days. Even Abacha next door, here. When you hear Nigerians speak about Abacha, in South Africa, pick Botha. That's the league in which this president will play. That's the league. Ghanaians are yearning to see the back of this president. And you are sitting here saying that you give people 95 cities lip. How does that compare to $1 million hoarded in a minister? I can't even pronounce the. I want water to drink. Look, you give somebody 95 cities, and then you go and hoard $1 million, and you want those 95 cities people to praise you. And when they talk about free education, the senior high school, as if people were not even going to school at all until they came. This is their mathematics they are doing. Do they subtract figures that year in, year out, school enrollment increases, even before senior high school? Look, before senior high school, school enrollments were increasing.
Actually, even per the population growth.
Yes.
2.1.
So if you come and you are making this hundious figure, did you subtract it from, you just lump everything, including those who have even gone to school, if Nanado was not even born? So these are some of the immoral lies that they come on TV and peddle. Another immoral lie that there was Dumso and they have come to end Dumso. Was it not Mahmoud Bawumia who said that John Mahama didn't need to be praised? This is Mahmoud speaking in 2016 March. Mahama deserves no credit for fixing Dumso. Then you will come and sit on national television. Your children are watching you. Then your children will say that, Daddy, that is not true. The 2016, I was writing my BEC, lies had come.
But why did the light go to start with?
You understand? So when you sit here and say that there are, you ended Dumso, when the truth is that you didn't end Dumso, it's also an immorality. You are peddling. When the people, they should have invited you to come there, you needed that type of conference. You get my point? So, look, this COVID thing, why? Just, you are going to Singapore, next door Ivory Coast, which the flag bearer, now president of the MPP, used to tout and indicate that they were doing better than us? Have we seen haircuts in Ivory Coast? Have you seen that? Have you seen ministers holding 1 million at a time? You remember that we were told that Bank of Ghana had run out of dollars at the time. Not knowing that
September, October.
Not knowing that our ministers were hoarding it. Hoarding it. Hey, one of my classmates recently, 2 days ago, Amida, I'm told, has money in his house, and that one too, armed robbers have gone for it. Look at the spate of thievery, and sometimes attempt to let the people of this country think that they are rather doing the right things by going to report people who have stolen their monies. Lifestyle audit. How did those people come by those monies? Are we doing it? Are we doing those things? Ministers who, when they were not in power, could not do payment, are today wearing big wigs, Brazilian hairstyles. Where did they get those 2 monies from? Lifestyle audit. So, look, this government is the worst when it comes to upholding morality. They are so immoral that they do not care what happens to the people of this country. And that's what we are seeing now. So I think that when you come on set, be circumspect, be moderate, because people are sitting and they are angry. And they are angry because we have bad governance. Under this regime, the things that we are seeing have never happened before. And you sit and think that Ghanaians who are finding it difficult to get 3 square meals a day this morning and are watching you will be happy with the way you are talking. But I'm not surprised. When it came to the crunch, for you to, as it were, rate your government, you failed. You couldn't.
Lajan, wrap up for us finally. Put the icing on the cake.
You know, one of the major challenges we've had in this country is lack of planning. So you decide to bring in free education, and you don't go through the value chain of free education at the end. So you have enrollment, plenty people. For you, you clap for that, not even looking at the content, not even looking at the fact that textbooks that will be used for these free education has not even been published. So they then churn them out. They then get into university, churn them out. And what happens? Full stop. No jobs. So what was the use of free education? What was its use? If you want to educate me free, for me to become somebody in society, and I finish and I can't get work, I'm back home, what is the use of free education? Because you don't plan. Let me give you another example. Are we not an agricultural country?
Largely, yes.
Largely. What's one of the major ingredients of agriculture? Fertilizer, isn't it? Do we not have an oil and gas industry? Could we not, if we had planned properly, build our own fertilizer plant with the gas we have? Have we done it? Is the plan even in place to do it? So lack of planning. And then you look at manifestos in this Fourth Republic, and let's string out the manifestos and see how the manifestos we have brought up has helped this country. Let's see. Don't you think it's a plan that we need? A plan that we'll all put our hands together and say, this is the plan we are all going by to develop this country. The Singapores we talk about, they had plans. The Malaysians we talk about, they have plans. The Koreans we talk about, they have plans. What about us? Because you get a situation where when you now have the government in power out of power, another government comes in and brings its own plan through its manifesto and then catapults what has been done by that government out of power, and is what causes financial loss. How many buildings, hospitals, schools are not in the bush today? How many? Have they continued? Have they continued from where the other government left off. And the Constitution mandates them. Perpetual succession. Do it. How many of them have done it? This government has tried to do a bit. And you see, we are not saying that what they've done is wrong. Some are wrong, some are right. But Roland, they could have done better. Better.
So that is the bone of contention.
Better. He doesn't want to, what do you call it, grade this administration. I would grade it 4/10.
Even charitable.
4/10. Because there are quite a lot of things they could have done that they haven't done. And there are quite a lot of things, especially on the corruption side, that the president will come and tell us and send a letter to a minister who has X quantum of money in her house. And you come and say what? Through your integrity or whatever, you'll be, what do you call it? What do you know that we don't know? And even if you think so, you have to come and rub it in our faces. So what if in the end, the minister is found culpable? What does that statement that you made, what does that make of you? So let's take things for granted. And that is what we've been doing in this country, taking the people for granted. The day the people say, yeah, bre, that is where we'll see the trouble that this country will go into.